Scary EIRE. EIRE is the Irish or Gaelic word for Ireland. Paranormal means all the things that are impossible to explain by known natural forces or by science. And Ireland is steeped in lore, ghosts, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, hunger, desperation, and charm. Oh, and the paranormal. Welcome to Scary EIRE.
Mark Manning.
Over the weeks, we've heard from counties Meath, Galway and Kerry, and later it'll be County Cork's turn, as Matthew Clarke of the Cork Supernatural Society shall regale us with 12 years' worth of paranormal investigations from the rebel county. Now, check out a YouTube channel called Paranormal Resident. Its creator, Ciarán Aughrim, is a very talented filmmaker and paranormal enthusiast in his own right. He's also somewhat of an Irish historian. Within Paranormal Residence playlists, you'll find a mini-series called The American Medium. In it, Ciarán films his friend Rhonda at various Irish historic sites and documents her psychic medium impressions of them. Rhonda Hale is an American with dual Czech Republic citizenship, currently living in Ireland. Go to rhondahale.com and find out about her thriving hypnotherapy and psychotherapy practice. You are about to hear part 1 of my chat with Rhonda, and part 2 is next week, when she'll be sharing her psychic medium findings on Leap Castle, the Aughrim battlefield, the Rock of Dunamase, and Donegal Castle. I know what you're thinking. Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. And she did. In fact, I got a bit more help than I bargained for. Listen on. I began by asking Rhonda Hale, does she talk to dead people?
I talk to them, but more they talk to me.
Okay.
Yeah, they kind of, I talk back and forth, ask them a lot of questions. Kind of like you and I getting to know each other, talking now and having a conversation. That's more how it goes for me. They'll come through and just say, hey, and they want to tell me their story. Otherwise, on a client base, which I do I have a lot of people I read for privately as a psychic medium, will reach out and they'll say, I really want some information. And their loved one will come through, but I'll kind of put a beaker out and say, hey, anybody out there want to speak and help out with this person's query? And then someone will come through and we'll have a conversation.
And when was the first time somebody said, hey, to you, Rhonda?
The first time I can remember was before I ever entered any kind of school at all. So I think I might have been about 3 or 4 years old. And I noticed that these friendly people were always around me. It was always a pleasant experience. It was never negative. And I thought everybody could see them. I didn't think it was anything different, but they would be kind of my little guardians and would say, oh, don't go around that person. They're not your friend. Or stay over here by this person. Or don't go over there. Play over here. They would kind of protect me and guide me and coax me and tell me things that other people wouldn't know. And so sometimes, you know how they say out of the mouth of babes, I would say things and people would go, oh, she must have overheard us talking. I could hear the adults say, or they'd say, oh, how strange. That's odd that she would say that. But I knew it for a fact because my friends were telling me things. So I remember just as a child.
You know, I don't know you very well, but I associate with you in my own, Irish intuition. The word that comes to me, and I'm not patronising you, it's sunshine. I feel you're a sunny disposition. You know, it doesn't come as any surprise to me that benign, nice people came your way. Oh. They were probably attracted to this sunny soul from the Czech Republic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
very much to say that. That's very kind. I guess I've always felt it was more comfortable to be happy than contrary. Everybody has days that are darker than others, but in general, it's a comfortable place for me to be in, I guess, a higher vibration.
Yeah. Dare I ask, has any nasty soul showed up? Or?
Yeah. They have. But honestly, I don't find it difficult to put them in their place and just set the boundaries strong and firm. So when I remember one location, I wish I could remember the name of the location. We went and it was the Rock of something. It wasn't the Rock of Cashel, but it was the Rock. It was a rock.
It was the Rock of Dunamase.
There we go. You know better than me. My goodness. Now, I will tell you, in that particular experience, there were these very scary native people who were there. They had filed teeth and they were cannibals. And I think the thing that made it so tangible for me is that while we were there, I kind of tapped into an active invasion that they were partnering with Vikings at the time to do. And so it was almost like I was immediately set into this really, really vicious
tribe
thing that was getting ready. Yes. Yeah. And for some sense, and I remember I rewatched that video and I never said it, but there was one of them that I knew he knew I was there. When I was there tapping into him, I could hear his thoughts of what he wanted to do and what his plan was and just how very predator type of thought process of how he was, vicious and just bloodthirsty, literally. And with that, at one point, I know he sensed me through time. You know, time just isn't what we think it is. He glanced in my direction. When I was taking it all in and I was almost enthralled, if you will, he turned around and looked at me. And I feel like he almost saw me in the same way I saw him. He kind of knew that I was intruding on what was happening. And it was almost like, oh yeah, come a little closer. And that was like, ooh, that was a lot, but I still went past it and I kind of shook it off. Then we finally got up to the top of the hill where it was really, the invasion was really ensuing and there was just a massacre in process. At that point, I did lose my cool and I just said, just get me out of here. Get me out of here because it got so intense. I was like, okay, I don't have to be here right now. Let's just go. I mean, we've definitely channeled quite enough. The temperature of what was going on there was just so intense. It's just like, well, I can go. But I've been around other situations where one place where I actually was like, bowled over intensely was in the castle at Donegal, where the lady of the house, now that was like just as real as me having this conversation with you right now. She literally was an open book. I could ask her any question. She'd come through and it was just poignant and clear and precise. Now, at that point, when she was replaying what had happened to her, it was like a rape scene. Somebody who was like very close to her husband, so she couldn't even say anything about it or it could end her own life. I literally felt on my hands where she was pushing against the rock, the granite wall. I felt my hands hurting. It was so intense, but you know, that's pretty normal. But that didn't scare me. I guess the only time I was like, ooh, okay, let's get out of here was there with the tribal type of.
Just back to that one, right? You said something interesting there, which I picked up on. You said time isn't what we think it is.
No.
Can you elaborate on that?
Listen, I'm not a scientist, of course, I at all. What I do is I talk to dead people, and I have had the beautiful, wonderful experience of after I connect with a beautiful soul on the other side, whether it's working with a client and giving them their reading or whatever, after their grandmother after the session's over, I will ask the grandmother and telepathically, I'll say, hey, do you want to hang out with me longer? Can I ask you some questions? And 10 out of 10, every time, if I ask them to stay, they will always stay with me. And I interview them and ask them all the questions. And I ask them, what is going on with time? What is this thing? Are we seeing it right? Is it as we perceive it? And every time they'll say, no, there isn't any time. Time doesn't exist. They say that everything is happening all at once. Everything is continually happening. It can be very much like on a loop. So you can, if you miss one train time to jump on the subway, basically 7 minutes later, another one's going to come and you can jump on, and you may not jump on at that same spot where you wanted to investigate, or you can go on and jump on and say, okay, take me to the one I missed before, and it can take you straight there. So you can actually gauge as if it were like a sliding scale where you want to jump on, jump off, because it's all happening at one time. So you can reach through many layers. So like if I've gone to a location, like I went to Horror Abbey with my daughter because I had filmed that location with Kieran in this series, the American Medium series. Well, when we were there, that's great. My daughter, Zoe, says, hey, Mom, I want to go. I said, well, okay, let's get over that. Let's go. My daughter also has my gift. We were there and she's like, Mom, this guy, and I saw this man kind of walking and following her around when we were walking.
Was this a spirit man or a...
Oh, yeah, spirit man, yeah. Right. So he was like a medieval soldier, I guess. He wasn't wearing armor or anything, but he was definitely a protective source, type of person. And he was following her around. I could tell that he kind of thought she was pretty. You could tell he liked her. Mm. And I saw him walking around, but that's not a big deal because you see tons of people walking around. I guess when I go to a place, and someone else may not be able to see anything. When I go, wow, I can see all this activity. I can see people living their regular life. You turn on the History Channel and it's basically living history right then. So she turned around and she goes, Mom, I feel like somebody's with me. I feel like a man's with me. And I knew immediately I was seeing the same guy she's talking about. And I said, yeah. And so she goes, he's really nice. I go, yeah, actually, he is very nice. He's a very nice guy.
He's a man in uniform.
He's a man in uniform. I think he's crushing on you a little bit there. She's like, she goes, yeah. And so he told me to tell her that now this might sound a little gory, but I mean, the sentiment and where it came from is very sweet. Okay. So he told me to tell her, he said, look down and you can keep a piece of me with you. And I said, what does that mean? Maybe we'll find an arrowhead or what are we going to find? And we turned down at the tip of her toe. I said, I don't know. He's telling you to grab a little rock and dig the dirt away a little bit. Probably 1 inch under the ground was a tooth.
Oh, that is incredible.
I know. So she still has it, obviously. And he said, please take me with you. And so she did.
The whole tooth and nothing but the tooth, yeah?
Right. That's it. So help me. Yeah, exactly.
So help you from dad puns. Yeah. No, that is incredible, though. That is, you know what? I actually don't find that outlandish at all. I find that's the kind of thing someone wouldn't make up.
You can't, the thing is for me is that I think it's healthy to be skeptical. I am skeptical I'm extremely skeptical. So I'm not going to automatically assume if I'm at a location and I hear a bump or a whistle or whatever, I'm going to assume that was the wind or that was an animal that moved it or whatever. But later, if I start hearing bells or start hearing people singing or whatever else, can you hear that? Because it's quite loud and evident. And if they're like, no, you're all right, Rhonda, then I know for a fact it's ethers of time seeping through. Yeah. A percentage, maybe 25% of the people who come to me for a reading, say, for example, they'll be, I've never done this before. And they're basically giving me a precursor saying, I think you're full of crap here and I don't really believe this. But I really,
you're so full of it, Rhonda.
Passed away. Yeah, exactly. And they'll be like, I don't really, I don't know what I'm going to get out of this, but my sister won't leave me alone and our mom passed and blah, 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 blah. And then inevitably, every single time, we'll just start talking like you and I are talking. We got to let people be comfortable. If you don't know me from anywhere, let's just relax, get to know me, get to know my personality just slightly, be more comfortable, let the guard down a tiny bit. And then sure enough, his mother will come through and she'll be holding some baked good or something that would be specific to her. And I'll say, well, there is a woman and I'll describe exactly how I'm seeing her and the age, because they can come through at any age, show themselves, and they'll be maybe smoking a chain smoking, or they'll be holding one lady, I was getting an eye appointment at an eye doctor's. I'm like, there is somebody here. She's holding a plate of Filipino egg rolls. She's like, oh, and she lost it and started bawling at the doctor's office. And I was like, she goes, well, that's my mother. She passed away, and that's all she ever did was that was her. She was super famous, and her whole family, everyone, people bought them from her egg rolls. So this kind of thing will come through, and then right then, because spirit is loving, spirit is kind, and they want you to say, hey, stop being a doubting Thomas. This is really happening. I'm really here. Here's proof. And they'll give you something that not just you can resonate with, but you can't even deny that that's that person.
Yes.
Like, how would I know?
Absolutely.
How would I know?
Absolutely.
And then from that point forward, then they're saying, okay, so listen to this crazy blonde lady, and I'm trying to talk to you. Will you just listen to her and stop being a ding dong, And so basically that's what happened.
I think as well what happens in that instant is you've got an instant convert, an instant believer, as opposed to an instant skeptic. They're sold. You've sold them. You've closed them. Well, I know that's 100%. Not your intention, but you were the medium.
100%.
And the great thing is, that person will be your biggest evangelist. Yes, Rhonda, we've got more to talk about. Yeah. So I want your feelings on this. Yesterday was a great day for me because it was my daughter's birthday, but it coincided.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, she's a nice young lady now and she's out in the world and she's at college and what have you. It's kind of bittersweet because I lost my mother on the same. It's really weird because my wife's birthday was my mother's birthday and my daughter's birthday is my mother's anniversary. So I popped over to the graveside yesterday where my late mother rests with the good colonel, her husband of over 50 years. Aww. Yeah, and I'm there and I know they're not there, if you know what I mean. The mortal remains.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about graveyards, etc.?
Well, graveyards, very rarely are people hanging out there. They're not there most of the time. I mean, sometimes I'll go through a graveyard and I can tap into the energy of a person or someone will show up and start talking, but they're a peaceful and restful place.
Hopefully.
Yeah, most of the time. I mean, I've gone to definitely my share of graveyards, quite a few. But once in a while, someone will come and show up to tell their story. But there's nothing ominous for me anyway. I just don't see it that way as anything ominous at all. Or it's sad. It's like they've crossed over there and they've crossed over. They're already in the light. And if they aren't in the light, they will when they're ready to go, But once in a while, I'll have somebody who is like maybe hasn't crossed over yet and maybe they were a bit nefarious and up to no good. One time I went to a graveyard and it was a pirate guy. I mean, it sounds silly to say that, but he really was. I mean, he steal and plunder and go to different ports and he was just not a good guy.
He was a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah. Definitely. He was like a Jack Sparrow for sure, but he was like he was very Jack Sparrowish, kind of likable kind of guy. But even when I went there with him, he hadn't crossed into the light. And I asked him why, and he said because he didn't feel that given the lives he'd taken and the way he'd taken them, that he just didn't feel that was what he should be doing. I don't think he felt like he should cross over. He didn't feel like he was worthy of crossing over. I tried to talk him and reason with him and just say, listen, we all make bad choices and some are more devastating to the world than others of the choices that we make, hurt more or less people. But those are lessons we learn, and then we cross over, go into the light, and we have a chance to make it right and do it over again better the next time. And so he said, well, I'll give it a think, basically. He just wasn't convinced.
Did you ask him to phone a friend? No? And what about the parrot? Was it on his shoulder at all? I'm being facetious here.
I didn't see any parrot.
You didn't see? Have you ever been drawn to places?
Oh, goodness. That's why I live in Ireland.
Oh, really? Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. My dad, who passed away when I was 16 years old, Jack Hale, he and I are very, very close. Even though he's passed away, I see and talk to him every single day. He is the one who said I needed to leave and get my European citizenship all lined up with passports, etc., and move. And I said, where? And he said, well, anywhere in Europe would be fine, but I would like to see you in Ireland. So that's why I'm here.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I followed his guide, and that is exactly why I'm in Ireland.
I would like to know the difference as Rhonda Hale sees it between a psychic and a medium. Is there a difference?
Yeah, I am a psychic medium. The difference between a psychic and a medium is a psychic will have very strong premonition and intuition. They will get glimpses of a future, past, present, etc., and be able to connect on that level, where a medium actually can see and converse with the dead. So a medium is somebody who can connect, talk to, and speak to the dead. Now, not all mediums can, some mediums can only hear audibly the conversation, and other people like me can hear and see, so I could describe the person, their hair color, what they're wearing, how tall they are. So with me, I've got all of it. It's all at once. But I am a psychic medium, and that would be the difference between a psychic and a medium, or a psychic medium.
Well, now we're enlightened, and I'm glad you've done that. Okay, so you're going to hear something now.
All right.
How does that? What's that thing they call APR or anyway?
ASMR.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to tell me what that is, but it's sage, by the way. It's a packet of sage.
Ooh,
and I'll tell you why I'm going to use it. I know it's cool in the gang. When I've stopped doing them, right? But occasionally I would do pieces to camera on my own markmanningmedia.com. Anyway, channel. I've noticed on camera a couple of times. Yeah. I don't want to call it the orb, but the odd time, and it was weird because the last time it happened, I kind of mentioned something about the paranormal. Now I think that was just a fluke. But straight away I can see the monitor when I'm on camera, and this thing comes behind me, and I froze frame it there. It's not like, but this thing looks like your kind of classic orb, and it comes down maybe once or twice. Not every time I appeared on camera, but it happens, and I'd be conscious of it. I'd see it coming down. Now I froze it the other day, and I went, "That's not dust."
No, it's not.
It's like a little. Do you know what it's like? Prawn cracker, transparent.
Yeah. No, that's a wonderful description. Yeah. Well, I think many people do refer to those, Mark, as orbs. I haven't done lives in a while, but I'm actually compelled to start doing them again because I keep getting people email me, and I'll do live readings, and I do free channelings, free readings, and all that. And inevitably, during my lives, that's exactly what will happen on film, and you can see them in the recordings after I post them, that there's these little prawn crackers floating around. No, you're right. Of all shapes and sizes. That is definitely spirit. That is spirit. That's energy floating around. You mentioned sage. I want to take this opportunity to let you kind of know the thing that I've learned about sage through spirit, and them talking to me and telling me to mind yourself when you're using sage, because sage, a lot of people use it to clear the space and clear energy, and they've had some weird stuff in the house and they want to clear it out, and they use the feather, and they'll maybe have a shell of abalone or something and go and just do that and do the smudging sort of thing. I would never, ever use sage for that. I don't use sage. I don't have it in my house. I would never, ever voluntarily use it, ever. I will use rosewood or Palo Santo. That's the only thing I would ever use for clearing space, because what sage will do is sage is an invitation to a lower frequency. So if you clear a space with sage, it's not clearing, you're inviting, and it would maybe bring in, not necessarily nefarious or anybody to be afraid of, but it definitely could. But it's going to bring in, you mentioned that only nice people come to me. Well, that's not always the case, but I will say that if you use sage, you're going to have maybe more depressive energies come in who want to connect and say...
Do you hear this, Rhonda?
Yeah.
That's the sound of me throwing the sage in the bin.
I'm glad to hear it. That's a happy sound. Don't throw it in the fireplace. Don't destroy it by fire. But yeah, just go on Amazon and buy yourself some Palo Santo, and you'll find that, or rosewood, but you'll find that the clearing of the space, or the clearing, or what you do before you do your recordings and your video, whatever, you're going to find the energies completely different, and the energies that do come through are very different. Or like I read for people all the time, and most of the time, if I'm not doing like an energy fair or an angel fair or something, which I do throughout the whole year, if I'm not doing that, I'll do it over a phone call appointment or a video call appointment, right?
Okay.
And I will always light a bit of Palo Santo and get it going. And then sometimes someone will want to connect with a loved one, maybe who committed suicide or suffered from depression, or if we're in the reading and then someone comes through, maybe who was abusive to them or something. The energy of that spirit who comes through is much easier to deal with, much easier to talk to. They're not as oppressive. Any malicious nature that they might have had in the living is tempered and approachable. Do you see what I mean? So with the sage, though, it's entirely different.
So
they'll come in full form.
I kept trying to rationalize it as well. I kept going, it's dust, and under a certain light, the camera is picking it up. What kind of anomaly is it, Right. So you think it could be spirits? How do I know whether...
Oh, yeah, it's spirit, definitely. It's supernatural. And you know how you can test it, Mark? If you have someone, like you said, your mom's passed, and she just literally had her
anniversary,
Anniversary, right. Her being such a loving, sweet lady that she was, I want to ask you to try this. Turn your camera on and don't have any other lights. Just be in the dark, and don't face it to yourself. Just face it to the wall so everything looks black, okay?
Yeah.
Completely black. And then I want you to turn the flash on so then you can see the wall, shadow of the wall, but you're still in a dark room with the flash on and it's not on your face. And I want you to sit there and think of your mother, think of all the happiness and joy she gave you and say, I'm glad you're here with me, Mom. Come hang out with me here in my little cubicle that I made here. And I want to test this whole orb thing. Can you answer me some questions? If it's spirit, can you show me an orb right now? And she will.
Wow. I'm going to give it a go, Rhonda.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, because if a person is by themselves and they can't get a hold of somebody like me or someone else who can actually connect, and they want to connect with their loved one and get some answers like, hey, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? Help me out. I need to talk to you, Dad. I need to talk to your mom or sister or whoever. What I do sometimes, just because it's a wonderful way to communicate to spirit, lie down in bed, have everything out, the lights out completely, face your camera to the ceiling, put the flash on, and start. You can talk in your mind, and you can talk out loud. It doesn't really matter. They're going to hear you either way. And ask them a question. Can you please show me yourself? Give me a sign that you're here with me. Immediately, the pattern that I always see is you'll see them almost ricochet back and forth. They'll kind of go... Oh. Very playful, very loud.
I hope everybody else is taking the notes that I'm taking, and I don't mean that in a facetious way. I'm listening to you here. If I'm honest with you, I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying again to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for it, right? I find it very easy to talk, like, in my head, if you like, to my late father and kind of have this feeling rather than my mother. And for that reason, I feel guilty at times because my mother thought the sun shone out of me, right? And vice versa.
Yeah.
However, and it's not a mummy's boy thing, the prelude to it all was my mother had an 8-year battle, which I would not wish on anybody, with Alzheimer's. And I found it very difficult to come to terms, especially initially, with what had happened to her. There was a few warning signs with the memory and stuff.
Sure.
But, when somebody announced that she had that condition, some part of me shut down, I think, for a while anyway, until you have to get on with it as best you can.
Yeah.
And to me, I suppose she'd kind of gone before she went. Do you know that way?
Of course.
And so therefore I kind of go, well, it's not as recent. Again, when I'm trying to rationalize things, it's not as recent as my dad's passing. He passed on about 3 years after her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now once or twice, almost in visitation, but she visited me in dreams. She looks younger.
Right.
Now, I'm talking a flash of intensity. It's not a long dream. It's a quick vision. It's like a quick hello, but somebody in the most blindingly beautiful, spiritual...
Yes.
Now I'm getting emotional, Rhonda.
Yes. No,
and
it's
I'm not
true.
putting it on for radio.
No, I know you're not, because she's here right now, actually. She's here right now.
Now I'm... And it goes so quick, but it's, do you know what it is, though? What I get from it is she's really happy wherever she is.
She's very, very happy, 100%.
She's really happy. I would wish that for everybody.
You know, what I want to tell you that I've learned through my wonderful visits and conversations is that Alzheimer's is, if you want to take it on as, these are superhuman people who end up, and I'm not going to say suffer from Alzheimer's. I'm going to say they take on the mission of Alzheimer's, because what ends up happening is when someone has a condition of Alzheimer's, what they're doing is they're having a foot in both planes, on the human plane and on the spirit plane. And they go in and out of their body because they are doing work. They're doing work. When people cross over, a lot of times they cross over because they know that their loved ones here need them to intercede for them much more than they could in human form. So they cross over so they can intercede to help them and to make things better. When people take on the mission, I guess, if you will, of Alzheimer's or any of the variations of that, they're presently needed here because some people don't want to let them go, right? And then when they're not lucid to our human standard, they're not lucid. They're doing work. They're doing some heavy lifting for people that need them here that are alive. Now, I don't know if, I'm not trying to turn this into a reading, but did you have a little brother or somebody that died? She's showing me a son, like you have a brother that passed away that was young, very little.
You know, when we had this conversation a moment ago and I said like skeptic to convert because, right? So I want the listener to know they are listening to one of these moments. All right, you're close. You're very close, because I was about to, There's a little boy with her right now.
Well, she has a little boy with her, and she's holding him close to her, and she said, "He's with me. Don't you worry," is what she said.
Okay. Well, you're warm. Well, let's elaborate
all right.
on it. Right?
Well,
now you're good. All right.
Well, I'm not trying to. I didn't want to turn it into anything.
No, you're not.
It's just that
you're not.
I don't have a choice because she showed up and she said, "Listen, I want him to know I've got this little boy with me." Yeah.
Well, I can. To her, it would be her little boy, right? So let me just explain, because you'd actually hit me on two fronts there, right? The second one is what we're just talking about. The first one is, you said that the mission, if you like, of Alzheimer's was almost like a foot in two camps, okay?
Yes.
So, again, I want the listener to know everything I'm telling you now, as you're hearing it, is authentic. You can scoff if you want and say it's coincidental, but here is Mark Manning, age 61 years of age, talking to the lovely Rhonda Hale, okay, and who's a psychic medium. I want you to know this. First, the foot in both camps. My brother was 54, I think, when he passed of. It was the only good thing that came out of, this sounds ironic, but I don't mean it to be, to sound cruel, but it was the only good thing that came out of Mum's condition is, for the most part, she wasn't aware that, I suppose you could call it, her little boy was in the horrendous position of having cancer.
Right.
And so he was a young man with children of his own, and he would be dying, and he would still drive up to see his parents as best he could. Now, during her care at that time, which was 2009, she passed in 2011. Jerry was passing away. The Filipino, and she was a lovely lady, carer.
Yeah, a lot of love there, yeah.
Said to one of the members of the family, she said, your mother sat here today, and she said she's talking to Jerry, which is my brother, her son, her little boy, right?
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said to Jerry, "Will you stay?" And Jerry said to her, "No, Mum, I have to go somewhere."
Yeah, he did.
And he was passing if he hadn't already passed, he was on his way out, as they say here.
Right.
So I won't say all dramatic stuff like I'm flummoxed and all that, but I could give you a hug, Rhonda, for saying that. Thank you.
I'm very thankful that I was able to give you that information. It's purely something your mother wanted you to have. She wanted you to have something tangible, she said. So to know that she really does hear you when you talk to her. And she's also telling me something else, that when you want to speak audibly to her. She said, that's because we're closer.
Yeah, right.
And you are holding on to the human aspect of that relationship that you had and that love, you know. Now your dad's a character. Oh my God. Your dad is a character. Okay.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, he's a character. He comes through. He's a kick in the pants. He's hilarious. He's funny, and he's a character. He's stubborn and hilarious and funny, and just the things that he would come out with.
Stubborn.
Yeah,
stubborn is a good word.
Stubborn. Yeah. And but like I can almost see him. He's standing with his arms in a fold right across his chest, but he's got a very quirky little smirky grin on his face. Like he's a rock of Gibraltar, but he's got a funny bone, I'll tell you that. But he's easier for you to communicate telepathically in your mind just because of your experience and the type of personality that he was. It's not that he was unapproachable, but at times he made it difficult to approach when you were growing up. But that's just kind of just his whole demeanor of who he is. But he has such a warm, big heart, you know? It's just you got to chip away to get to it sometimes.
Rhonda, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can I just say, he grew up largely without a father. His father made it through the trenches of the First World War, only to die of appendicitis in the 1930s.
Oh dear!
So he was. If he wasn't even a boy, he might have been a child, I think, when his father passed. Yeah. So there was that kind of thing, which was, now there's a military thing there as well, but also a generational thing. You know, men had stiff upper lips and all this kind of stuff. Where,
not showing emotion.
And that said, towards the end, in maybe the last 20 years or so, I became very, very close to my dad. And I am, and not everyone is, but I'm a hugger and a grabber, you know? Yeah. And I made sure, that he was hugged and told he was loved before, he went kind of thing. But I interrupted you. Getting anything else then?
No,
you're
fine.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. That's kind of what I wanted to tell you is that, you were mentioning before that communicating to him telepathically was easier, and you didn't find that came as natural when you're connecting with your mom. You want to verbally connect with her. She was just explaining to me that that's why, because of the complexities of how you connected with them in life. And that's just how it is. It doesn't mean it's wrong or weaker or different or not as strong or whatever. And then her coming through in your dreams, she said, all you have to do is ask me if you want me to stay with you longer, I will. And she'll come and stay with you longer. Wow.
I will be asking my mum then to stay a bit longer. We'll have a little chat and we'll do that camera trick thing as well. Rhonda, can I just say thank you for that. I know you didn't intend to wander down the road of a reading, but your accuracy is just mind-blowing. I'm going to say no more. I'm going to have to really think about it. So we leave it there, and part 2 from Rhonda will be in the next episode. And I'll just say, when I did think about it later, Rhonda was actually more accurate than I'd thought. But that's personal.
Mark Manning.
Early last December, Matthew Clarke of the Cork Supernatural Society returned from his holiday in Portugal, and it was an ideal time to catch up with him. Sell us Cork.
It's a wonderful county in terms of we've got so much history down here. Cork, from the city to West Cork down the bottom, you could be driving for 2 hours and, it's just castle after castle after castle. Wow. Or abbey. And for someone, I suppose, for this hobby, so much history here, and just a fantastic place. I've lived here my whole life, and I'm happy that I grew up in Cork. It's been great for my hobbies, which have developed over the years.
You're a proud Corkonian.
Yeah.
You don't mess with the Corkonians. Yeah. Of course, Michael Collins himself was a Cork man.
He was, and we actually investigated a place where he stayed the night before he got assassinated right there. So yeah, there's Irish history. When you really look into it, it's quite brutal in terms of the castles. And then when you move into more modern eras, like you've got the Asylums and Madeleine Laundries, places like that. But there's also a magical side to it with all these ruined castles dotted around,
When did you first get interested in the paranormal?
It would have been when I was about 7 or 8, so 27 now, so about 20, coming up to 20 years ago. Me and my sister there's a place locally to where we live called Donegal Cemetery, and it's a convent. At the time, it was still in use as a convent, and you could walk around the cemetery, which we did. We were in there one summer's day, and we had been in there about an hour or so, and just as we were leaving, we were kind of going towards the convent building, and we could see smoke in one of the windows, and we went over to have a look at that, investigate it. We were there for 2 or 3 minutes. Smoke kind of developed into a human shape. I'll never forget seeing the figure, the arms particularly, just so clear, developed into a human shape. And then I remember there was an older couple who were in the cemetery, and they saw it as well. So from that moment on, I was fascinated with the paranormal, and we used to walk every day for years. We used to go in there, but never saw anything like that again. But that's kind of how it started.
You have an open mind from then on. Cork Supernatural Society, did you set that up, or was it already in existence?
I set it up. How it started, really. From that moment, I started getting, I would say I got more, you would think it would be just the paranormal, but I actually got more interested in history and abandoned buildings. I started exploring them when I was quite young, and my family were interested in that, and I suppose from a safety point of view, I was very lucky that way that my mother was interested in it. She wanted to go with me, so I wasn't exploring these places by myself. And it just started. We had 1 or 2 experiences when doing just exploring abandoned buildings during the day. I remember being in a place called St. Kevin's Asylum, which is here in Cork City.
Was there a fire there recently, or?
There was a few years ago. It was basically gutted. It's just the kind of shell of it now. But yeah, we went there one day and we had a door slamming. Kind of paranormal stuff kept popping up, and I'd had that experience. My mum had her own experiences. So we actually set it up as a family group. So that would have been 2013 we set it up in. And it just started kind of a small time thing, just a few of us in the family and 1 or 2 friends. But it developed into bringing in as a people as it went on. And we now have a group of 10. It was an interesting way how we started. I'm the only person from my family that's still involved, but we've had Kim, Paul, we've known them, for close on 10 years now. So, and it is, I suppose, in silence, doing intimidating places together for years on end, so you do grow very close, and we usually keep it to relatively small numbers, so you do get to know them, and they do become just like family.
What was your first location?
It was a local place called Ballincollig Castle, so there was a legend of a man had been seen there over the years, and that's how we started. Didn't get anything, to be honest, but that was the nice way I kind of got the bug, I suppose.
And did you ever go back?
Yeah, it's one of those places. I always want to get something there. Like, we went back there last year for the 10-year anniversary. We always go back there, but to be honest, we haven't come across anything.
Yeah, well, it's always the first time. What was the history of Ballincollig Castle? Do you know?
There's only the keep that is remaining there, but it's got the full-on curtain wall, which is kind of unusual to see. There's not too many in Ireland like this. They have it fully intact, particularly for a ruin. So it was the ghost story that drew us there. I know the castle was used as a prison at one point, so on the ground floor. So that kind of drew us there. We just picked it because it was local and we knew how to get there. That's how we started with that place. Look, it's a 13th century castle, and it's been a while now since I read up on it, but from my memory they believe there was a kind of an earlier settlement there going back to the 10th or 11th century, before the castle that we see today was built.
Did you go at night or during the day?
First time we went during the day just to kind of have a look at the place and get familiar with it, but we do all our investigations during the night. So when we went back for the first proper investigation, it was a nighttime one.
So it was a lovely place, but it's been a washout in terms of activity.
Yeah, there has been.
No EVPs or anything?
Literally nothing. And we've been there for hours on end, but nothing. Yeah, we do find that you can go to a place. There's a castle not too far from there called Clarke Castle. There's an abbey there as well. But we must have went there over the years 8 or 9 times and never got anything. And only recently we got our first EVP there. Some places just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get something. I don't particularly find castles that active, and I think it may be due to how old they are. I do wonder does energy, paranormal energy, kind of burn out over the years? Because for us, the places we've found most active would be the more recent places, as in Asylums, the Madeleine Laundries, places like that only closed down within the last 10, 15, 20 years. They would be typically the buildings we find more active rather than ancient castles.
How many investigations do you average a year?
We would kind of aim to do a big one every month, say. Mm-hmm. But we go to ruins and asylums, abandoned buildings. I would say, like this year, we've done 35.
Wow.
Yeah, and we'll get one more in now before the end of the year. And some of them, they're not all full night ones. Some of them will be 2-3 hours, local place. and then we'll get in our major ones alongside that, you know. But with Ireland, there are so many castles, and even if they don't have a paranormal history, I just love going to them. We just try and tick off each one as we go along and see, do we find anything? And if we do find something, then, you know, we found one and we go back there regularly, you know.
And you document all your findings on your Facebook page and Instagram, yeah?
We do, and we're always asked about YouTube, so we're going to put a bit more effort into YouTube in 2025 now. That would be the kind of new goal.
Well, it's the way to go. It's the second biggest search engine in the world, you know, Matthew.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, there's never really been a goal of, like, being on TV or anything like that. It's just, I see the Facebook page as almost like a diary that I just share. Yeah,
so I'd say in 225 you're open for new members too, yeah? You're always looking?
Yeah, always looking, and we do a lot of public events, so we often meet people on those events that turn into members as they go on through the years, you know.
And do you tool up with equipment, and if so, what type?
We basically have all types of, night vision cameras, CCTV system, different audio equipment, and then you'd have the typical motion cameras, K2 meters, all your kind of standard paranormal equipment. For me, it's all about audio and video cameras are the best.
Our mutual buddy Jenny Sullivan in Emerald Isle Paranormal, she's big into her EVPs, isn't she?
For me, that probably would be the most common way that we get stuff would be through audio. Well, like I said, we've done 35 investigations this year, and we probably have maybe 3 or 4 good pieces of audio, you know.
But you treasure them.
You do, and, you know, I always remember getting my first one, and each one, you actually do remember each place, each one. So, yeah, you do treasure them.
What's the most shocking one?
We were in a pub in Cork City that we'd been called in to investigate, called the Poor Relations, and it was just 3 of us in the room, and I had asked them how many spirits are present, and when we play back the audio, there's the clearest response. That really is an incredible piece of audio, saying just me. This is like crystal clear, and it's actually funny. You know, you do this so often. I was planning my next questions in my head when I played back the audio, and it was so clear. The 2 lads with me just both kind of, they both just went white and they just stared at me, and I was so distracted thinking about my next questions, I didn't even take notice of it. But it is incredibly, incredibly clear.
Wow. Did you ever visit any of the plague pits, famine pits? Do you know where the kind of mass burials happened?
There's one in Cork called Carr's Hill. We've been out there once or twice. Those kind of places are they're tough to investigate because they're outdoors. The one that we were in Carr's Hill was just literally a cross in a field that marks the spot, but there's a busy road next to it. So it's it was a hard one to actually investigate and take seriously in terms of audio. You had constant sound of cars going past.
So nada.
Yeah. You know, it's hard to say because when you've got so much noise in the background, it kind of just makes it pointless unless you physically see something, but that's extremely unlikely.
I'm going to share some locations with you. St. Declan's Cathedral, Ardmore.
That was one. We were actually going, there's a large house up the road from that called Ardú Castle, or Ardmore House it's known as, and we were just killing time and we came across St. Declan's and we went in there. We were only in there about an hour, so we went on to the other location, but that's one of the places that we're looking to go back to in the start of the year. I'll hopefully have more news from there soon.
It looked very impressive.
You know, it's stunning, and I didn't expect right in the centre of Ardmore to come across something like that. Just an incredible place, which goes back all the way to the 5th century, I believe. It's
all documented on your Facebook page, isn't it?
All documented, yeah.
Timaleague Abbey.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, you are.
And I have a thing here, a note, Mystery Man.
That was probably that was quite an early investigation, about 2014, so maybe about a year after we'd set up. Timaleague is one of those places that I'd heard about. There was a couple of Cork groups before us, and they'd told me that they'd got some EVPs there, so we went to Timaleague. Now, on the night, it was all quiet. We didn't come across anything, but it was the following day when I was reviewing pictures. I was just going through the pictures I took the night before, and in one of them, there's a clear figure of a man just standing there, close to a grave, and we were all walking towards where this man was. None of us saw anything, and none of the cameras picked up anything. It was just on this one photo. You can see the man. And now it's not one of those photos where you've got to draw a line around it to show people where it is. This is a crystal clear
outline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can actually see if you look at his legs, you can actually see the grave behind him. You can actually see through him, you know. That was an incredible, I just couldn't believe it. I remember at first I just assumed it was someone had got into the abbey that we didn't realise. And I ran around looking at it all. We had motion cameras set up on every entrance and nothing was picked up. And then I had a kind of zoomed in on it and had a proper look at it. And you can actually see the grave, the bottom of the grave, through his legs. So that would be probably one of the most incredible discoveries we've got.
Well done. You must have been delighted with yourself when...
Yeah, and it was one of those. We haven't been doing it that long. So I kind of thought, Jesus, it didn't take us long. I was thinking, what else will we find? But we probably never caught something like that again, you know.
Where's Timoleague Abbey exactly?
It's West Cork. Be down the bottom of West Cork in the village of Timoleague. But we've never caught him again. But it was just fascinating. And it was huge for us because we posted on Facebook. We only had a few followers at that point, but it really, we got thousands of followers from that. Yeah.
Matthew, the first phone call we ever got to Scary Era was from a guy in Scull in County Cork. He was saying there was an awful lot of activity in, I'm not sure which asylum in Cork, but I think there had been building nearby or on an original site, and the residents were reporting all kinds of stuff. What has been your experience of those former institutions?
So the Cork Asylum, that's probably the place that really started it for me, because there's two buildings. One of them is called Our Ladies. That's the grey brick building. That's the older building. More than half of that is apartments. So I imagine that's what he was talking about. People living in it. And then the very bottom of it is abandoned. And if you go up through the fence, then you'll come to the more modern 1800 St. Kevin's, which is the red brick building. So there are two asylums actually there, two massive buildings, and then kind of a lot of outbuildings around them. But Our Ladies is where we investigate Our Ladies more, and that's the first place we ever got a name. So we were on the top floor there. It was just me and one other girl. Again, didn't hear anything at the time, but I asked for a name. When we went back and reviewed the audio, a very clear name of Stephen came through. And we went back there literally about a week or two later, and we were just talking about the Stephen EVP. One of the guys can be heard asking me, is there a record of a Stephen here? And I said, there's been hundreds over the years.
Of course.
We just got a first name. But in the background of that audio, you'll hear someone, it's quite a scary one. It sounds like someone screeching. It's me in the background. We got a lot of EVPs in those buildings over the years. St. Kevin's then, the other asylum up close to it, was probably one of the places I had one of my scariest experiences. We were in there one night, there was four of us, and we were going down the back staircase. It's basically one of the oldest staircases in the asylum. There's a corner of the stairs. You can't see what's coming around the corner. You have to go around. When I got to the bottom of that stairs, and I could hear people whispering voices of 2 or 3 men. And we just assumed that as the people had come in, it was voice at that corner. So we were literally about to bump into them. And we looked around the corner and there was no one there. But it was a very creepy, mumbling sound. So we immediately went down and checked the entrance point because it was heavy rain that night. So when we'd come in, we'd left footprints, but there was no fresh ones. And our motion cameras again, or the audio around the building. No one else coming into the building. So that was very spooky.
That is spooky incredible. So the asylum anyway was put to the torch there. Was it vandals or somebody?
St. Kevin's was completely, more or less, destroyed. That was burnt by vandals. Our Ladies, the grey building, the part people are living in, there's still an abandoned block of that, but it's completely, it's been vandalised as well, but it's more floorboards have just collapsed in it. Yeah, the asylum days are over, unfortunately. But they were fascinating buildings. And we had, that's the north side of Cork City, and that area is kind of full of history. So you've got 2 asylum buildings about 5 minutes away.
It's important to emphasise as well how big these institutions were. They would have held hundreds of people. Yeah,
they were massive. Like Our Ladies is actually, it's one of Cork's, you'll always have people in Cork at it. It's the longest building in Ireland. And it's one of those that I think it's in the top 3 in Europe, longest continuous building. To have then St. Kevin's, which is a 4-storey, massive building as well. That was built to help bring in more people. scary to think the amount of people in Ireland that were locked up for mental health.
And that's so true. And so many of them had no real issues in comparison at all with today. They were quite sane, and they would have been driven mad if they didn't acclimatise.
Yeah, and like if you read about it, you could put your wife or your husband in there very easily, or one of your children if there was a problem in the family. You only had to get a doctor to sign them in, and it was extremely, extremely easy to do.
Moving up the coast, Cove.
Yes, yeah.
What's the history of Cove like? So it's coastal, isn't it? It
is, yeah. It would be a seaside town. It would be most famous, I suppose, for its Titanic connection. That's where it was. I believe it was the Titanic's last stop.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where people left. They actually boarded small boats and were brought out to the Titanic, which was situated closer to Roach's Point. But that's where they left. And there's also the Lusitania. When the Lusitania disaster happened, the bodies were brought back to Cove, and there's a mass grave in the old cemetery there of the Lusitania victims. So Cove has, I suppose, its connection to those two famous events, but it's got its own history, and there are so many buildings that we've done in Cove over the years. Currently, kind of where our main place at the minute is an old convent in Cove called the Convent of Mercy, and that's probably one of the most active places now that we've come across in years. Got some phenomenal EVPs there, and we've been very lucky. We've kind of had full access to it for about 2 years now, and we find that the more consistently you can go somewhere, the better evidence you get. But we've done so much in Cove, and we've actually got I won't name it yet, but we've got a new location in Cove for our first investigation of 225. So yeah, we're very excited for that one.
I think the energy as well in the convent, because it's predominantly female, it's a different type of energy.
Interestingly that you bring that up, we have found that in places, so convents, it seems like the females get better interactions, but we've also been to a priest college in Ballyvoney, kind of in the Kerry border, and they only really interacted with the males, and I suppose it does make sense, like they were exclusively, the convent would have been all women, so it does make sense that maybe they wouldn't be as comfortable with the men. Also,
a lot of these would have been very young women, and as you know, there's often an association with their teenage prepubescent energy associated with poltergeists. Do you ever encounter any poltergeist activity that put the fear of God into you?
I would say, I suppose, I'd have to call it poltergeist activity, and it's in one of those type of buildings. It was in the old Madeleine Laundries in Cork City. It was just me and Paul that night. It was just the two of us that night, and we'd been in there about an hour, and I remember we had just literally said, this place feels very peaceful. It's completely flat. We didn't get any type of vibe or nothing was happening. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, there's just sounds like a door slamming on the floor above us. God. And that's when it kind of started. So that got our attention, and about, I'd say, literally 2 or 3 minutes later, it literally sounds like someone picks up a cupboard or some huge heavy furniture and just flings it across the room. And then there was more banging doors, and there was no one in that building. It was just me and Paul.
And did you stick it out, or did you take to your heels?
We stuck it out. I'd say it kind of went mental for about 20 minutes. We stuck it out. We were in there about 2 hours, but that is the only time that we've actually left somewhere. We got intimidated, to be honest.
Poltergeist, it's just so you're not focused on any particular point because it's going on all around you.
Yeah, and I suppose it does make you, like, I've never had a bad experience in terms of I've never been hit or nothing's ever bad. Like, I've never been followed home from an investigation. Nothing bad's ever happened, but it does, like, whatever was thrown that night in the Madeleine Laundries, it was very heavy. It could obviously do you serious damage. It pushed you over and down the staircase you go,
Are you aware of instances where an entity has attached itself to somebody?
And we've done 1 or 2 private houses where that's allegedly been happening. But yeah, I have come across that.
I think private houses are so much more genuine an investigation because most people are at their wits' end by the time they call some guys like you in.
We've done a lot of them over the years, and it's been fascinating because we have got some paranormal, but you've also come across other stuff to bring into it. Like, there was a case, very sad really, it was an older woman and her husband had passed away. They'd been married for 65 years, something like that. She was in the early stages of dementia, turned out. We didn't know that when we first turned up, but as it went on, it became more and more obvious. And it was it was the first time we've come across that. It's the only time I think I've ever lied to somebody. We said, oh yeah, your husband is there, because that's what she wanted. She was desperate for her husband to be there. Very sad, and it does take away, because it started as a hobby, but when you get into that level, I suppose, then you actually do involved in something that is very serious to people, particularly in private houses, you know.
I just want to get through the last one I have here. Colosta Isagon.
Fantastic.
What's it like?
That's the old priest college.
Okay.
But we've got so much. That's probably the most active building we've been to over the years. Even last night I posted something from there. Very, very active in terms of Class A EVPs. One of the first ones we got there. It was fascinating. There was me, Jackie and Paul in this room. Paul is not at all. I've never seen Paul spooked on this occasion. And he's very, very sceptical. But me and Jackie could tell he kind of almost you could tell he was off, fidgety, and he said he was fine, but afterwards he told us that he just got a very spooked feeling for a few minutes in that room. And on the audio, there's this Class A VP of someone saying, they cannot see the naked crosses. So a full sentence. I asked Jackie, what's that behind you on the wall? And she said it was the Stations of the Cross. So we assume it's some type of reference to that. All the EVPs we got there were religious. Well, not all of them, but the kind of main ones. And there's a night there we got someone praying, and then Hail the Father is said. We got another one there. Again, it sounds like someone praying. It's quite strange. And then you can hear someone cut in and say, I am a priest. So we've got crazy stuff there. And it's the only location we've been that every time we went there, we got something. No one else has been like that for us, but that's the only place that has been.
Do you ever go out of county at all?
We do, yeah.
Where have you been?
Yeah. We've been, so I suppose some of the famous ones we've been to, we were in the Hellfire Club, Leap Castle. So Hellfire Club's Dublin, Meath Castle, Offaly. We've kind of done more the famous ones around Ireland, Wicklow Jail, places like that.
Leap Castle. Yeah. What has your experience been there?
I hate to be boring, but nothing, to be honest. I've only been there a few times, so look, you, as I said, you do need to go there a lot, but I didn't experience anything. And we were talking to the owner, and he said to us that it's every once in a while, he said that, it's not what it's made out to be in TV.
Further emphasises the nature of what I'm doing isn't to sensationalise. If you didn't experience anything, you didn't.
But look, hopefully go there in 225, and we would probably be the most sceptical of groups, I think. Even though we all believe in it, we've all had our experiences. Yeah, we are very, very sceptical, and it takes something pretty impressive to make us say that was paranormal.
And so say all of us. Matthew Clarke, a lovely guy, isn't he? And more from him in the coming weeks. We'd love to hear from you, so email paranormalireland@protonmail.com. Scary Era is a Mark Manning Media production. Goodbye and take care.